ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयत्। नश्च प्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपाकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमपदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामने गौतुसे नमः। वंशकल्पातरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining in. Part of our Bhagavat Prakash, Bhagavat Life program. We are reading from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are going to start with our discussion from the 15th chapter of third canto. The discussion, the storyline that is going on right now is about Kashyapa and Diti. Well, it's not about Kashyapa and Diti. The storyline begins with, why did Varahadev kill Hiranyaksha? In other words, how come Hiranyaksha became so powerful, and why did he receive the fortune of being killed and thus becoming liberated from the hands of Varahadev? And therefore, the story begins with Kashyapa and Diti procreating in an inauspicious time. As a result of it, Diti begets two ferocious sons in a womb. And that's how the 15th chapter begins with. So it's a big chapter, around 50 verses, but a very, very important discussion. Two major themes, or maybe just let me tell you what's the story. And there are two major subject matter, and then we'll take a look into it. So the story continues with Diti having begotten sons in a womb, knowing the fact that these are going to be demonic forces, a demonic child. She holds on to a pregnancy for almost 100 years. She doesn't allow them to come out. And these two sons who were there in the womb of Diti, they were so powerful, when they saw that they were not being brought out. Hare Krishna. Something happened to camera? Why did this flicked? अपने आप ही कैमरा बंद हो गया यहाँ से. Okay. What was I saying? So when the sons they saw that they were not coming out. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives an example. Just like if you pour more fuel on the fire, in fact, more means a lot more, then what happens? The fire extinguishes. Similarly, these two sons of Diti, they were so powerful, just by their presence within this creation, they created darkness while they were not even born. Now, the purpose of sunlight is it helps you understand what is day, what is night. It helps you to make, it gives you an understanding you're growing old, and then you can perform all the different activities that you need to do. Suddenly, at one point of time in the history of mankind, uh, it was completely dark. The sunlight was there, but it was all covered over by the darkness. And then the Devtas went to Brahmaji and they prayed to Brahma. So there are verses that glorifies Brahma. So here Brahma has been addressed as Supreme Personality of Godhead. So don't get surprised and shocked. Oh, Krishna is the Supreme. How Brahmaji has been addressed as Bhagwan? So when you're offering prayers and when you want to please an individual, first of all, he's no ordinary person. He's a directly born child from the sun, from Vishnu, direct representative of the Lord to carry out the function of creation in this world. So when you approach to him, such an individual is considered almost at the same level as the Supreme Lord. Why? Because he's representative of the Supreme Lord. Just like Guru is a representative of the Supreme Lord, has to be offered all the respects as we would offer to the Lord. That's the whole Vedic culture. So they are addressed Brahmaji as a Supreme Lord, they glorify Brahmaji, and eventually say, please, Pahimam, please help us. There's all darkness. You know the very well reason for that. We also know, please protect us. So then Brahmaji said, oh, let me tell you what has happened here. And then he begins the story of how Diti is about to give birth to two sons who are so powerful, even though they have not appeared, yet they have got darkness. Now imagine what will happen when they would appear. They are frightened. Oh no, what's going to happen to us? When demonic kids are born, when demons are born, the first thing they do is attack Devtas and take up their position. So then Devtas asked Brahmaji, who are these two sons? How have they become so powerful? What is the story? And then Brahmaji begins to speak about their story of how my sons, there's a whole involvement of Brahmaji also in this kanda. So my sons, four Kumaras, at one point of time decided to visit Vaikuntha. Well, they decided it's not the way, but they got the blessings of the Lord, because of which they entered Vaikuntha. And that's how the whole story begins, about four Kumaras entering Vaikuntha. So before that, he begins to speak about Vaikuntha, our Kumaras entering Vaikuntha. Brahmaji speaks about what Vaikuntha is. And that is why this chapter is titled as Description of the Kingdom of Godhead. So the set of verses talks about what Vaikuntha is, how Vaikuntha looks, what are the kind of people there, etc., and their activities. And then second part of the discussion, this chapter is four Kumaras entering Vaikuntha. And why did Jaya and Vijay became angry? And what happened when they became angry, and so forth, as the story is. So Jaya Vijay became angry because four Kumaras, although the oldest created being in this world, because they were always in the form of a 5-year-old child, and they were known to be the oldest and the eldest son of Brahma, nobody ever asked them a question, and nobody ever stopped. So when they entered to the 6th gate, and finally when they came to the 7th gate of Vaikuntha, where Jaya Vijay was standing, they just didn't look at Jaya Vijay. They walked confidently. I mean, ultimately nobody have ever checked on you. And that is why Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur writes, that is why Jai Vijay became so angry. बोले यार हम यहाँ खड़े नहीं है क्या? हमसे permission तो लो. They didn't do permission only, and they walked confidently. And then the Jai Vijay became angry, and they stopped four Kumaras. And when four Kumaras were stopped, they became angry. And then they cursed Jai Vijay. And here they committed a Vaishnava Aparad. And then the rest of the story goes on, and which will be discussed in the next chapter. So let's begin with this chapter. Let's see, with the given frame of time, maybe you will be able to cover the description of the kingdom of Godhead. Before I do that exercise, I would like all of you, if you can just take a 30-second pause, write down everything which attracts, which attracts our senses. What attracts your senses? the fragrant breeze, the wealth. Just write on everything. Just write on what attracts your senses. Take a 30 seconds. For a second, don't think you're sitting in a Srimad Bhagavatam class and you are an Uttamadhikari. Just as a regular Kanishtadhikari, what attracts our senses? Just write on those things. If wish I would have this, life would be so wonderful. Let's see what's the height of your imagination, what all you can write. अभी यहाँ मत बोलना, हाँ, व्रत रसों के समान। काश मेरे जीवन में शुद्ध भक्तों का संग ही हो, केवल उन्हीं का संग, उन्हीं का संग, उन्हीं का संग, और कुछ नहीं चाहिए। वो सब मत लिखना प्लीज अभी, हाँ। I mean, I know that is what you want. That's no doubt about it. Just for the sake of exercise, don't write that. Go a little more deeper and look what generally, if not today, what our heart's desire were there before. Hare Krishna. So those of you who are online, if in case it's possible, switch on your camera so we have to know who all are attending. All right, fellows, take your time, take your time. What? The Swiss tour, marriage to with Miss Universe or Mr. World, whatever it is, whatever comes to your mind. Having a house in a private island, surrounded with what do you call as sandalwood trees, fragrant breeze blowing, have a private beach, and that is known as Paradise Island. Everything is like paradise there. And to add more spice, is filled with the most beautiful damsels, and you are the only men to increase, what all you can think of. All right, if you're done with it. So point here is, if you've written any of these things, the wealth, the beauty, the knowledge, anything like this, generally we get so caught up with it that we forget everything else. And the foremost we forget is about service to the Lord. So here, when the description of the kingdom of God has been described, which is briefly touched upon, the major theme or the major subject matter is, although the Vaikuntha-vasis, and of course, no birth, death, old age, and disease, you remain sweet 16-year-old teenager, hale and healthy. Your senses are vibrant to enjoy as long as you want and as much as you want. No restrictions. And you're surrounded with wish-fulfilling trees. Okay, वो तो कुछ ज़्यादा ही हो गया. But imagine you're surrounded with the mango trees that gives you mangoes all around the year. Coconut trees that gives you coconut all around the year. In your private island, by the way. So if you have that setup in your private islands, you have healthy body, you have everything to enjoy your senses, who would remember Krishna? Who would remember service to the Lord? So here, when the description of the kingdom of God is given, the one thing which comes out very strongly is, although the Vaikuntha-vasis, they look like Vishnu, four-handed, they're living an eternal life, is beyond birth, death, old age, and disease. No kleshas like Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika, no suffering of any kind, no competition, no 9-to-5 job, no sowing a seed and then farming a land to grow crops. That every tree is like a wish-fulfilling trees, gives you fruit all around the year, etc., etc. Even despite all of these, which you may call as an apparent distractions, they are still fully absorbed in serving the Lord. And the greatest distraction is the beautiful association of opposite sex. And then the beauty of opposite sex is given. Despite having the most beautiful wife by your side, yet, despite their attractive glances and beautiful form, not even a tinge of passion arises in the residence of Vaikuntha-vasis. And that is the nature of Vaikuntha. What is the idea is, Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashvatham Prahu Avayam. So before we enter into the subject matter, very important to understand this material world is perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So what all attracts our senses, those things exist in the spiritual world also. But the only difference is Atmendriya Pritivancha, that is called as Kama. Krishnendriya Priti Icha, that is called as Prema. So the material world is a material world where we are trying to fulfill our desires. Spiritual world is a world where everyone is trying to fulfill Krishna's desire. Now, question comes here. I'm pretty sure some of you might be thinking, but ultimately, life is meant to be happy. Life, I mean, I can do that if in case that gives me bliss. And that's the whole point. And the whole point that you understand from here, just like Srila Rupa Goswami describes, what is the nature of happiness in this world? Oh, Bhagavad Gita says, Yehi samsvashya bhoga sukha dukha. No, no, yehi samsvashya bhoga dukha yoni evate adiyantavanta kante anate shuramate mada. First of all, understand what's the nature of material happiness is nothing but a little relief from the suffering. There's no experience of happiness, it's just a relief from suffering. That is called as material happiness. Then you come to Brahman realization, then you have where you have negated all your sufferings. Then you have the stream of happiness. And then finally, there is a spiritual happiness. And Srila Rupa Goswami says the spiritual happiness of affection that arises because of affection to the Lord. The even the drop of that happiness cannot be compared with the unlimited happiness anyone can achieve in the material realm. That's the nature of happiness. So in other words, you and I, maybe at this point of time, we may not be able to experience that happiness that comes by being in the mood of service to the Lord. But Vaikuntavasis being firmly fixed in that, despite moving around in their private airplanes with the most beautiful concerts, they do not get attracted by sexual thoughts or lustful desires. Despite being in their association in a perfect romantic environment, they're still singing the glories of the Lord. That is called as Vaikuntha. First thing. Second thing we'll see here is there is no scope of envy. The beautiful verses will come here when the bee begins to buzz. The cuckoo, coo, sounds so melodious. The peacock, all of them stop singing. The question arises, hey, why do you stop singing? Your sound, your singing is far melodious than the singing of the bee. The reason Vishnu Chakrathakur says, because the benediction the bees have, none of them have. And what is that? They can fly and sit on the garland which is bedecking the beautiful neck of the Lord. So they get the opportunity of the closest association. And when after drinking the nectar of the flowers which are in the garland of the Lord Vishnu, and then after drinking that, when they कहते हैं, flap their wings, that produces a sound of as if they're saying Hari, 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 Hari. And seeing that all the most melodious birds who sings melodiously, beautifully, they maintain a silence. Oh no, the bee, she's. And Vishnu Chakrathakur writes, imagine what if bee has to actually glorify the Lord, what will happen then? Just by flapping his wings, they become so proper. It's a place of no envy. That is what. So I just want to give you this background before we get into the subject matter, where there will be a little description of the beauty of opposite sex, etc. will be described. So rather than seeing from a material perspective, rather than getting agitated, we understand why these descriptions are given in this particular chapter. So that's a place called as Vaikuntha. So let's take a look at it. So the first 11 verses talks about Diti holding on to her womb and not allowing the kids to come out or the child to come out, and then the darkness spreading all over the world, Devta getting frightened, going to Brahma, and Devta is going by Brahma. So that is first 11 verses. So read it at your leisure as your part of reading assignment. Moving forward from the 12th verse, and then we begin our discussion from the 12th verse onwards. Yes, Mother Medavni, you can share the screen. Screen sharing rights are given. Go ahead. And now we'll begin to read from the 12th verse. Give me a quick second. Let me open the commentary. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. All right. You all have verses with you to be able to see? Why don't you connect your laptop? कर सकते हैं ना? So everyone will get to see here. All right. So text number. Where is Zoom? Zoom is here. Yeah. Minimize. So we begin our discussion with the 12th verse. Yeah, that is 12th verse. Brahmaji says that how the four sons go to Vaikuntha. And the discussion begins from text number 13. We'll take text number 13. Te tai kada bhagavato vaikuntasyaamalatmanah yayu vaikuntha nilayam sarvaloka namaskritam. So Brahmaji is speaking and he says vaikuntasya amalatmanah. Amalatmanah, free from all kind of anxieties and kaleshas. Amalatmanah. Being freed from all material contamination. Translation. After thus traveling all over the universes, they also entered into the spiritual sky, for they were freed from all material contamination. Amalatmanaha, pure. In the spiritual sky, the spiritual planets known as Vaikunthas, which are the residents of the Supreme Personality Godhead and His pure devotees, and are worshipped by the residents of all the material planets. Prabhupada dedicates a purport talking about how this material world is full of anxieties. And that's where this discussion becomes so important. So if you ever think that only there is a conflict within the human species, well, not like that. Even the animals fight with each other. We know the dogs, how they fight with each other. We just had an unfortunate incident in the morning where an owl crashed against the door and died. Now, they generally are here in the aisle here, in the corners of the building. I can tell you, in the after midnight, sometimes they fight so much, so much. There's a loud screeching sound that comes. मतलब उल्लू भी शांत नहीं रह सकते. And what are they fighting for? What do they have? Maybe just a place where they hang upside down. Isn't it? Have you noticed how much we become attached to a place of dwelling? And they're just, you can probably fly from here and go to the another corner. And that's what they fight for. And this is what Prabhupada says, material world, whoever you are, in whatever situation of life, it's just going to be a place of suffering. Text number 14, description begins about Vaikuntha man. How does a Vaikuntha man looks like? And it is said, Vasanti yatra purushaha sarve Vaikuntha murtaya ye animitta nimittena dharmena radhayan harim. Two very important things which are mentioned. Vasanti means rehna. Vasanti yatra purushaha. So what kind of man lives there? Sarve Vaikuntha murtaya. Sarve Vaikuntha murtaya means Murtya means form of the Lord. Vaikuntha Murtya, all of them have the form similar to that of the Lord. That's the point. Which means spiritual, transcendental form, four-handed form. And we see this again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam. Where do you find similar description about the Vaikuntha Vasis? Any other incident? Four-handed. It's not that only here it is mentioned. Everywhere across Bhagavatam, whenever the Vaikuntha residents are being described, they're always described in four-handed form. So when Vaikuntha Vasis, Vishnu Dutas, they exactly look like Vishnu, like this. Then, ye animitta nimittena, categorically mentioned here, which means they have no material desire. They have no desires. Dharmena aradhayam harim. They dharmena aradhayam harim. And they're always engaged in simple Sanskrit. Aradhana. They are always engaged in serving the Lord Hari, like this. Text number 15. Now about the Lord. Yatra chadhyapamanaste Bhagavan Shabda Gocharaha Sattvam Vishtabhya Virajam Swanam No Mridayam Vrashaha. There the Supreme Lord, the Original Person, the form of the highest Dharma. Bhagavan Shabda Gochara. Shabda Gochara means who can be understood by Shabda Gochara, wandering, which means only through the hearing of Vedic literatures. Shabda Gochara, what a beautiful word. There the Supreme Lord, the Original Person, the form of the highest Dharma, attainable by the Vedas, Shabda Gochara, who is established Sattvam Vishtabhya Virajam, who is established in pure Sattva, Swanam no Mradayam Vrashaha. Mradayam Vrashaha means one who gives pleasure to the senses, gives pleasure to his devotees. That's where the Lord is being situated. So Prabhupada talks in the purport largely about the word Shabda Gochara. How to understand Vaikuntha? Only through the oral reception, by the process of hearing from the Vedic scriptures, like this. Text number 16. Now comes description about the forests. How does it look like? Yatra nahi shreyasham nama vanam kamaduge drumahi sarvarto shibhe viprajat kaivalyam eva murtima yatra nahi shreyasam nama. So, two things. Srila Prabhupada says, nahi shreyasa means auspicious. Nama means named. Vishnacharya Thakur says, there is a forest by the name of Nihishreyasa. Yatra Nahishreyasam Nama, of the name of Nihishreyasam. Vanam Kama. Vanam, क्या है वो? वन है. Kama Duge Drumahe. Kama Duge means wish fulfilling. The one which can fulfill all your desires. Hare Krishna. क्या चल रहा है? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Kama Duge Drumehe, they are wish fulfilling. In other words, Sarvatu Shribhe Vibrajat. They give fruits across all the seasons. Be of fruits and flowers like this is mentioned. Proper direction. When Vaikuntha plants the land, trees, fruits, and flowers, the cows, everything is completely spiritual and personal. The trees are desire trees. On this metal planet, the trees can produce fruits and flowers according to the order of metal energy. But in the Vaikuntha planet, the trees, the land, and residents, the animals are all spiritual. There is no difference between the tree, the tree and animal, or the animal and the man. Here, the word Murtiman indicates that everything has a spiritual form. If the trees will give you fruits on its own, then why do you have to work for anything? Isn't that everything comes on its own? That's a point. Text number 17. Now, so here Kaivalyam is described in the previous verse. Kaivalyam also means monism, or attraction to Brahman realization, like that. So text number 17 has some interesting words there. Vaimanikasa lanana charirani shashvat gayanti yatra shamala shapanani bhartuhu antarjalena vikasan madhumadhavina gandhena kanditadiyo apyanilam shipantaha Vaimanikasa lanana charitani shashvat. So the residents of Vaikuntha, they don't have two-wheeler, four-wheeler. They have wheel-less vimana. Vaimanikasa. And how does it fly? On the wish of the mind. It is not mentioned, it is mentioned elsewhere. Vaimanikasa lanana charitani shashvat gayant yatra shamala shapanani bhartu. So they are traveling in their vimanas, accompanied by their consorts, singing the glories of the Lord, like this. In the Vaikuntha planets, the inhabitants fly in their planes, accompanied by their wives, and they eternally sing of the character and activities of the Lord, which are always devoid of inauspicious qualities. Shamala, Shapanani, inauspicious qualities. By singing the glories of the Lord, Antar Jale Anuviksan Madhu Madhvinam, by singing the glories of the Lord, the fragrant breeze, if in case it attracts their minds, because they're standing with their consort, beautiful wives, if it attracts their mind even for that purpose for a second, they criticize the blossoming Madhavi flowers. Oh, why are you trying to distract our minds from the service of the Lord? Like this is being described here. So Prabhupada says, it appears from this verse that the Vaikuntha planets are full of all opulences. They are airplanes, and they don't have to work hard to acquire a vehicle. It is all given to them by the blessing of the Lord, like this. Then Prabhupada says, they all are pure devotees. They consider glorification of the Lord more important than their own sense gratification. At Vaikuntha planets, there is no question of sense gratification. So we established it right in the beginning of our discussion. At this point of time, this subject matter could really sound foreign to us. How? When you have all the objects for sense gratification, why wouldn't? But that's the reason. Urdhvamulam adha shakam. It's a perverted reflection. In the spiritual world, if the devotees, everyone is absorbed in serving the Lord, which means it must be the highest. And it is ever increasing. Therefore, when the Lord was described, it was mentioned Mradaha, which means Mradayam Vashaha, which means it keeps on increasing the pleasures like that. Text number 18 about the birds. So that's the verse that we were talking about. When the king of bees hums in high pitch, singing the glories of the Lord, there's a temporary lull in the noise of the pigeon, cuckoo, crane, chakravak, swan, parrot, partridge, and the peacock. Such transcendent birds stop their own singing simply to hear the glories of the Lord. Prabhupada writes, there's no difference between the birds there and the human residence. Situation in the spiritual sky is that everything is spiritual and variegated. Spiritual variegatedness means that everything is animate. Trees, grounds, plant, flower, birds, everything. And Prabhupada says the special feature of Vaikuntha is that there's no question of sense gratification, like this. Text number 19. Mandara kunda kurabotpala champakarna punnaganaga bakula ambujapari jataha gandhe richite tulasi ka varnena tasya yasmin tapasu manaso bahumanayanti. In the forest of Vaikuntha, on smelling the scent of tulsi used in the garland of the Lord, the Mandara, Kunda, Kuraba, water lily, Champaka, Anna, Punnaga, Nakesh, Baluka, lotus, Parijata trees, being of pure mind, give great respect to Tulasi of her performance of austerity to achieve that positions. I'm reading from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Like the birds, the trees are also the greatest devotees, and they're devoid of envy and hatred. So whatever you can imagine and consider of an ideal condition, that is what Vaikuntha is, like this. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur writes. Now, why Tulsi is being glorified? Because she gets an opportunity to be recited the lotus feet of the Lord. Now, how did Tulsi receive such a blessing of benediction? Because she came onto this Bharatavarsha and performed austerity. So Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is saying, the other trees and the flowers, they're indirectly glorifying the position of the Bharatvasis. And they're indicating that how we long also to go to Bharatvash, come and perform austerity so that we can please the Lord, so that we can also beautify the body of the Lord by being ornamented. Like that, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur writes. Prabhupada focuses more on subject matter of giving up. And we text number 20. And text number 20, now we talk about the beauty of the woman. The point is, I'll read that purport by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Having described the beauty of the surrounding gardens, he describes the beauty of the city in the center. Vaikuntha is filled with airplanes made up of gold, obtained simply by surrender to the Lord's feet. And those who are engaged in the bliss of worship of the Lord, there is room for the bliss of Brahman. What to speak of material pleasure. And then the beautiful woman had been described. Yet, despite having all those opulences, the men there are not at all distracted by their service to the Lord. And then text number 21 describes Mother Lakshmi. Shirupini kavanayati charanaravindam Leelambujena harisadmani mukta dosha Samplakshate safatika kudaya upetahemni Sammarjati vayatanugrahane anyayatnaha. So Mother Lakshmi, also, although holding a lotus, swirling a lotus in her hand, yet she picks a broomstick and tries to clean Vaikuntha, which is spotless. Why? So that I can render some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text number 22. The goddess of fortune worship the Lord in their own gardens by offering tulsi leaves on the coral paved banks of transient reservoirs of water. While offering worship to the Lord, they can see on the water the reflection of their beautiful faces with raised noses, and it appears they have become more beautiful because the Lord kissing their faces. Text number 23. Yanna vrajanti agabido rachananuvada shanvanti yanya vishaya kukatha matikni yastu shutahat bhaginar vi atasaras tam shipantya sharne shutamah suhanta. So here, text number, this is 23. Now Brahmaji says, who cannot enter Vaikuntha. Yanna vrajanti, who cannot go. Agabhidaha rachananuvadaj. Shanvanti ye anya vishya. So Shanvanti ye anya vishya. Shanvanti means jo sunte hain, second line likha hua hai. Those who hear of other subjects other than the subjects of Vaikuntha. What are the subjects of Vaikuntha? Agha bhido rachananuvadaj. Just like Ranad Muni also says, the subject matter of the Lord has a capacity to destroy all sins. Agha bhido, destroying all sins. Rachananuvada, they're full of adventures. Those who do not hear. Why? Matagni, whose intelligence have been lost. Yastu shuta hata bhagen vi atasaras. They're wasting the human form of life. In other words, Brahmaji says, who cannot enter Vaikuntha? Those who have got interest in subject matter other than hearing about the spiritual subject matter. So, here is a question for all of you. There are different categories of people in this world. They are atheists, they are agnostics, and they are theists. Then you can give different categories. They are bhaktas, then they are impersonalists, and then they are abhaktas. Among all of these categories, who would be the most unfortunate? So here text number 23 says, who cannot enter? Who have got other subject matters to hear other than hearing about the Lord, about the spiritual world. So who would be the most unfortunate? Non-devotees, impersonalists. Who would be the most unfortunate? Non-devotees who are absorbed in Harry Potter, Marvel movies, Chacha Chaudhary, or Star Wars, whatnot, or maybe in their course books. Those are too much studying also. So who is most unfortunate? The answer is impersonalists. Why? Because they have made the subject matter of transcendence entirely void. It just does not exist. In case of atheists, they do not know about it. Whereas impersonalists, the same scripture, they say, oh, it is all false. It doesn't exist. It is jhuta, like this. And then text number 24 is a very, very important shloka for all of us. What is that? And then Brahmaji says, Ye abhyathitam apicho nargatim prapanna jnanam cha tattva vishayam saha dharmam yatra naradhanam bhagavato vitarantya mushya sammohita vitataya vatamayayate. And Brahmaji is saying, speaking to Devatas, Brahmaji is speaking, and he says, even ye abhyarthitam apicha no naragatim prapanna. Even the Devatas, even the Brahma is desiring this opportunity to enter the Vaikuntha. But we don't have that. Jnanam cha tattva vishayam saha dharmam yatra. I'll read out the translation. Prabhupada says, my dear demigods, the human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such life. What? The Devatas want to come down to this planet and they want to take birth as humans. Why? For in the human form of life, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. Tattva Vishwam Saha Dharmam. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Naradhanam Bhagavato Vitarantyamushya, and his abode, Sammohita, has to be understood. Vitataya Vatamayayate. He has been bewildered by the external energy of the Lord. So here, Vishnu Thakur writes, oh, those of human birth are qualified to go to Vaikuntha, and not even the Devatas. But those humans whose intelligence is misled by scriptures which are devoid of bhakti are cheated. That is impersonalism. They are lamentable. If we were born as humans in Bharat Bhumi, then worshipping Krishna, we could attain Vaikuntha very quickly. Those who attain human life desired by us, Brahma and others, in which there is knowledge along with dharma, if they do not perform worship of the Lord, are bewildered by Lord's Maya. So, like this, scriptures glorify the human form of life, particularly those who have taken birth in this Bharat Bhumi. And the most regretful thing for this Bharatvasis of Bharat Bhumi residents, everyone, even if they are born in a Brahmana's family, everyone is running to West to make money. And when they enter there, it's just a matter of time when they take up the same lifestyle as other Yavanas and Malechas. And they give up their own practices and culture. So here, Brahmaji is saying, even we desire to come and take birth in this world. And Brahmaji did that, right? He came to this world. He took birth as, how did he came? Haridas Thakur. He came and appeared as Haridas Thakur like this. Prabhupada have an interesting point in the purport. Prabhupada says, what Prabhupada says? It is not possible to go back to Godhead in one life. But in the human form, one should at least understand the goal of life and begin Krishna consciousness. It is said that the human form is a great boon because it is the most suitable boat for crossing over the Nishines. Spiritual master is a captain. The human being who does not take advantage of all these facilities in this life is committing suicide, Atmahanaha. Therefore, one who does not begin Krishna consciousness in the human form of life loses the life to the influence of the illusory energy. And to conclude with, Brahmaji says then, who can enter Vaikuntha? Yacha vajanti animisham rashabhanuvratya dure yamahi upari nasparniya shilaha bharato mitha suishasha kathanuraga Vaiklavyabaspalaya pulaki kritangaha. Yacha vajanti. Who can enter into? When one who hears Rishabhanu Vritya Spraniya Shilaha. One who hears, when one who hears about the Lord, or when who chants the glories of the Lord, what happens? Vaiklavyabaspalaya pulaki kritangaha. The torrents of tears begin to fall from his eyes. His body begins to experience ecstatic emotions. So, translation. Persons whose bodily features change in ecstasy, who breathe heavily, perspire due to hearing the glories of the Lord, are promoted to the kingdom of God. Even though they do not care for meditation or austerities. A very, very beautiful purport. One of the longest purports of this chapter, which will a little bit focus, and we'll pause from this. So here this purport talks about the qualities of a Vaishnava and the glories of holy name. So Prabhupada begins to focus on the purport, talking about what qualifies one to go back home, back to Godhead. So this, this ecstatic symptoms can be manifested only after we have cultivated Vaishnava qualities. What are these Vaishnava qualities? So Mother, you are sharing the screen, so why don't you go on Chaitanya Charitamrit, Madhya Leela, 22nd chapter, verses 80 and 81. 22nd, if you're able to pull out. And there these qualities are mentioned. Arey, I don't have it here. What the
Verse numbers, Prabhu?
Wonderful. Oh, wait a second. 22.78. All right, I'll share the screen. Got it. This is Madhya Leela. Sei sabaguna hai Vaishnava lakshana sabakaha nayaya karidiga darshana. All these transcendental qualities are the characteristics of pure Vaishnava. They cannot be fully explained, but I shall try to point out some of the important qualities. These are those famous 26 qualities. Kripalu akrita droha satya sara sama nidosha vadanya mradu suchi akinchana सर्वोपकारक शांता कृष्ण एका शरण अकामा अनिया स्थिरा विजिता सद्गुणा मिथ्याबुक अप्रमता मानदा अमानी गंभीरा करुणा मैत्रा कवि दक्षा मौनी. Kripalu, simple Sanskrit. Let's take a look at Kripalu means merciful. Akrat droha, not defined, which means submissive. Satyasar, truthful. Sama, equipoised. Nidosh, faultless. Vadanaya, Namo Mahavadanyaya. That is Vadanaya. Magnanimous. Mradu, soft-hearted, mild. Suchi, clean. Akinchana, gocharam, as we say. Akinchana, do not have material possessions. So, despite having material possessions, how can we not have material possessions? How would you answer this question? We have so much possessions. How can we become a kinchana? Huh? We're not obsessed. Okay, very nice. We have so much material possession and we are accruing more and more possession. How can you become a kinchana then?
By engaging the possessions in the service.
By engaging the position and service of the Lord. That is secondary. What is primary?
Understanding that they don't belong to us only. Like
Okay, by understanding they don't belong to us, but how can you understand that when it belongs to you? It is in your pocket. How can you say it doesn't belong to you?
yeah, it's Lord's mercy that
The idea is it is under my care. It is under my care. Just like Sanatana Goswami wanted to give up his body, Chaitanya was, hey, this is not your body, this is my body. You are the caretaker of your body. So how do we understand? How do we become a kinchana? So whatever we have with us, we should see this is under our care. And that's how we can engage it. But when we say it is I, then of course, then we become the controller and proprietor. Akinchana, without material possessions. Sarva upakaraka. Sarva upakaraka means working for the welfare of others. How can we cultivate the quality of sarva upakaraka? Working for the welfare of others. क्या कर रहे हो भाई तुम? उनको दिखाओ ना, वो दिखेगा नहीं वो. Huh? Yes, we have this opportunity now to go out and share what we have received. Sarva upakaraka. That's how we cultivate. Shanta, peaceful. Of course, that's not my subject matter to discuss on all this quality, but just quick reflecting on it, because that's the last verse for today. Shanta, peaceful. What does peaceful means? Srila Prabhupada describes in Bhagavad Gita. Peaceful. Devotees are peaceful.
Bhuktaram yajna tapasam sarvalokam maheshwaram.
Okay, that is peace formula. Nice. Which is correct. Which means no hankering. They're content with what they have. They are not hankering. Krishnaika Sharanam, which means what? Taking shelter of the Lord. What does it mean by taking shelter of the Lord? Krishnaika Sharanam. Believing in the protection of the Lord. What else? Krishnaika Sharanam. Okay. जब प्रोटेक्शन होती है ठीक है, लात पड़ने के बाद श्लोक निकलते हैं. कृष्ण का शरण, व्हाट डज इट मीन?
You should surrender to Krishna.
Krishnaika Sharanam.
Ashlisha
Krishnaika Sharanam. Okay. Krishnaika Sharanam means my only shelter is Krishna. Only shelter is Krishna means for that a Sambandha Gyan has to be there first of all. The good and the bad that comes in my life, my only shelter is Krishna, which means my only protection, I only depend on Krishna. Now, what do you mean by you for your protection from everything you would depend on Krishna? Which means Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Krishna Sharana, Krishnaika Sharana means a strong faith in the holy names of the Lord. That by attentively chanting, everything can be accomplished just by chanting the holy names of the Lord. That is what Krishnaika Sharanam. Akam. Akama means without desires. Akama. How can we become akama? By desiring only service. But desires are not under our control, no? Yes or no? We are floating in the waves of the desires. Desires are not created by us. For that, our chitta has to be purified. So how do you become akama? By living in devotee association. How do you become akama?
By teaching.
Akama, no, the desire doesn't come like this. Yes, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Following the orders of Guru and Sadhu Shastra, engaging oneself in devotional service. You don't desire to engage because you don't have the desire right now as a sadhaka. To say you will desire, that is beyond you. What do you desire? I mean, do you desire that you will eat? Or when you feel hungry, you want to eat? And it's just the desires keep on floating. So desire is not our control. So what do? We engage ourselves. That's how we become akama. Akama, aniha, indifferent to material acquisitions. Indifferent to material acquisitions. How do you become indifferent to material acquisitions? Any thoughts? Indifference. Indifference to matter, indifference to things. So what comes to my mind is Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. Janayati Yasu Vairagyam. So that will develop the indifference towards the matter, indifference to the material nature is nothing but an outcome of your practice of bhakti. As you become more and more strengthened in bhakti, naturally become indifferent towards material life. Sthira, fixed, Vaivasayatmika buddhi. Okay, Vijita Shad Gunaha, completely controlling the 6 bad qualities, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mat, Matsarya. Mithabuk. How can we become Mithabuk? Eating only as much required. What does Mithabuk means for devotees? Particularly for ISKCON devotees. Only prasadam, very nice. वो तो हो गया अभी. What else? Mithabuk.
Taking your quota.
How? Who sets your quota? How do you identify? Hi? ये क्या है? Okay. Apramata, without inebriation, intoxication. Apramata means material, affection. Manada means manada. This is called as dichotomy. Now, what is dichotomy we find in the path of bhakti is, this is one of this. Manada. Be respectful, but do not expect any respect. This is dichotomy. Manada, respectful. Amani, without false prestige. How can you be Amani without false prestige? Where does the prestige comes into? How does prestige comes? Prestige comes only when you think you are the doer. Amani means when you understand you're not the doer. That's it. Amani. Gambhira. कितने लोग अभी गंभीरा होकर आए? नहीं, हो गया है ना? या गंभीर बने थोड़े? What is गंभीरा? Huh? Gambhira is not grave. What is Gambhira?
Deep,
Thoughtful.
deep.
Deep.
Seriousness? Seriousness, Prabhuji.
Hey, devotees are not serious. Devotees are most joyful soul. Why do you want to make devotees serious?
No. Taking things in a very positive way and not very casually. Like
No. Okay.
Nothing as a
What does Gambhira means? So Gambhira, in other words, it means
Super person.
gravity. What does gravity means? Means absorption in the service of the Lord. Well, first, one quality of Gambhira is no prajalma, no useless talk. And therefore, at the stage of sadhakas, this, maintaining a distance between male and woman is recommended. Why it is recommended? The moment the man comes in association of woman, his passion rises. As the passion rises, you might have seen how the man begins to show off, how the man begins to talk. Have you ever noticed in the college life? Therefore, again, this quality has to be cultivated. How? By maintaining a respectful distance. In terms of course, I'm not saying anything against women as such, but it's just a psychophysiological nature of different sexes. In case of mothers, they tend to speak more in comparison to men. This is just a physiological thing. What can be done about it? So when we come into that, and there is a lot of chances of frivolous talk. So therefore, the scriptures, say maintain a proper distance, respectful distance. So if there has to be any association, it should be pertaining to the service. No +1, no -1. Talk about service is done. Hare Krishna. So that is how we cultivate Gambhira, graveness, because this is where the biggest and greatest distraction comes, getting into frivolous talk. And then Karuna, Kangya Shloka, compassionate. Maitri or Maitra, friend. Kavi means poet. Daksha means expert. Mani means silent. All right, let's conclude with few of these. Karuna means compassionate. What do you mean by Karuna? Compassionate. How devotees are compassionate? What does Karuna, quality of Karuna means? Okay, sharing Krishna consciousness. If that's the case, then Sarvaparaka, how is it different? Sarvaparaka is, working for the welfare of everyone. The same thing, na? Compassionate. Karuna, compassionate. Compassion means forgiving. That's the difference between Sarvapakaraka and Karuna. Only a compassionate heart can forgive, will not hold grudges. Clear? Maitra, friend. What does a friend means? A friend. Well-wisher. Okay. It means non-envious. He does not envy anyone. Ajata Shatru. Which means for a devotee, he does not consider anyone as his enemy. There's no concept we were discussing. Huh? There are three kinds of perceiving any relationship: friend, neutrality, and animosity. For a devotee, there is nobody called as enemy. It's a different thing. People may not want to talk to me. People may consider me as enemy. But for me, there is no enemy. And that's how Yudhishthira was. Duryodhana considered Yudhishthira as enemy. Did Yudhishthira consider Duryodhana as an enemy? He never considered. Example is when Duryodhana was captured, it was Yudhishthira Maharaj who sent Arjuna to rescue Duryodhana. If Yudhishthira would have considered Duryodhana as an enemy, Yudhishthira would not have helped. That's the point. So Maitra means a friend. And if in case we ever develop any kind of hatefulness or grudge towards anyone, then be assured we ain't going. We got to be in this world only. Maitra means a friend. We cannot have any grudge or any animosity. Kavi, a poet. What does a poet means? Which means ability to glorify the Lord beautifully. Daksha, expert. What does Daksha means? What does expert means? What does it mean? Expert is yes, detail oriented, attentive. All right. Mauni, silent. हमारे भक्त तो सबसे ज्यादा बोलते हैं. Mauni, what does Mauni means?
Talk only about
Talking
Krishna.
only of Krishna.
Talking only of Krishna.
No, incorrect.
Correct.
Mauni.
Speaks about glories of devotees.
Okay.
Not talking nonsense.
So Mauni means singing the glories of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. Tadiya, like this. That is what Mauni means. Silent. Hare Krishna. So, anyways, coming to the conclusion of discussion here. So, where were we and where we came? I can stop sharing the screen. And where is the verse that we were talking about? The verse talks about. Oh, I lost the verse only. Okay. So here, who can enter into Vaikuntha was the discussion going on. So who can enter Vaikuntha? Who cultivates his qualities. And then there is this 26 qualities which are mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and there is another set of qualities which are mentioned in third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Third canto, 25th chapter, verse number 21. Tatakshva Karunika, Surdam, like that, there's qualities mentioned. That is one thing. And then Prabhupada says, these things, yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarve gunes tatra samasate suraha. These qualities develop automatically in one who engages in devotional service properly. So how does it happen? Prabhupada gives all the credit to the proper chanting of the holy names of the Lord. One who properly and attentively chants the holy name of the Lord, he naturally develops all these qualities. And to be able to chant attentively, what we need to do? To be able to chant attentively, what we need to do? We have to carefully give up the 10 offenses. Therefore, Prabhupada talks about the 10 offenses. And then Prabhupada says, one who is freed from 10 offenses, what is a symptom? One who is not committing 10 offenses. The moment he chants, Pulakashu, his eyes wells with tears, and tears begins to roll down. The symptoms of happiness and tears in the eye must appear in a person who has chanted the holy name offenselessly. Here in this verse, it is stated that those who have actually developed the symptoms of happiness, tears in the eyes by chanting the glory of the Lord are eligible to enter the kingdom of God. Hare Krishna. And like this, the discussion happens. So this is the conclusion of the discussion of how the Vaikuntha looks like. Who can enter Vaikuntha? Who cannot enter Vaikuntha? Who cannot enter Vaikuntha? No. Who cannot enter Vaikuntha? Those who have not developed the taste for hearing Krishna Katha. They cannot enter Vaikuntha. Who can enter Vaikuntha? Those who have developed Vaishnava qualities by practicing bhakti. And how does Vaikuntha looks like? Is entirely opposite of the material world. And you can pause for a second post the session ends and then think about it. How much we struggle for basic necessities of life? How many of you think you're struggling for basic necessities of life? Isn't it? There are always some trouble, although you're living in a high-end society, then suddenly there is a cut in electricity or there is a shortage of water and what not goes on. I see Nitai Pranpru here. He is living with his family in London. Prabhupada called London as a modern day hell. The sun never rises only. It's always cloudy and dark and gloomy, whatnot. So some people have, if I go to Western countries, I'll have nothing. Nowhere you can have wonderful living or peaceful living like this. The spiritual world is the only place which is free from all kind of anxieties. Can you imagine a life where you're free from all kind of anathas, misgivings, misunderstandings, and the vices and the defects and the urges? You're completely independent like the Lord. Like that is a spiritual world, and that's where the four Kumaras entered. But a disclaimer, the four Kumaras did not enter or go to the spiritual worlds. There is the Vaikuntha planet within the material universe. That's where the four Kumaras entered. It is not possible in the same body to penetrate the layers of the matter, earth, water, fire, ether, mind, and force, ego, and then go across. So whenever this Vaikuntha comes here, somebody visiting Vaikuntha, or as some demon entering Vaikuntha, or let's say Durvasa Muni going to Vaikuntha, it is all about the Vaikuntha planet within this universe. where the Vishnu resides always. That is how Acharyas explains. Otherwise, how can they enter into the same body, into the spiritual world? Hare Krishna. So we'll see that story next time onwards. This was a little bit of introduction to this. So we'll club, which means tomorrow only, because I want to have this discussion. So tomorrow we'll take this chapter as well as we'll take the chapter next chapter, where the story now builds in. Why did 4 Kumaras? So who enters Vaikuntha? Those are free from all the vices. Those are free from Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. So if 4 Kumaras who must be free from Krodha, how can they become angry? When the Krodha doesn't exist only. How can they become angry? And now, chalo, Kumara to Kumaras. Now, Jay and Vijay, those who are the doorkeepers, how can they act so harshly? It's mentioned that how they raised their eyebrows and twisted their eyes. Chote kahan se aa gaya tu? Nanga punga. They really, they looked angry. They also are angry. They're like, kahan se aa gaya tu? So how could Jay and Vijay, the doorkeepers, act like this? And then the Lord comes smiling along with Lakshmi and all the other devotees. The question comes, hey, how come 4 Kumaras get darshan of the Lord when they committed Vaishnava Aparadh? Isn't it? They committed Vaishnava Aparadh by cursing Jay and Vijay. Then why did Lord appear? The Lord should not appear because they committed Vaishnava Aparadh. How can the Lord appear? Then Lord appeared. And Lord not only appeared, he asked forgiveness from the 4 Kumaras. Please forgive me, my doorkeepers, I made a mistake by stopping you. I mean, Lord, you're the Lord. You're the Supreme Person Godhead. Why you have to ask for forgiveness? And then when it came to giving a punishment, he said, well, you can decide. They can get 5 births as devotees, I believe, and 3 births as demons. That was a probably thing, right? And in that case, Jai Vijay said, no, apne ko 3 life chahiye. Now, why would they ask for 3 life as demons as against to 5 lives as devotees, right? 5 lives as devotees. Why would they ask as 3 lives as 7 lives? 7 lives. Okay, double number. So then the Lord gave a proposal. So, okay, you can take 3 lifetimes as demons or 7 lifetimes as devotees. For a second, imagine if that option is given to you and you have to come to the material world. Now, what would devotees say? All the prayers of Acharya says, Prabhu, kahin pe bhi rakho, bhakto ke sang mein rakho. Let me become the cheaty in the house of a devotee. I'm happy. And Jay and Vijay, the pure devotees of the Lord, they said, no, we'll become demons, which means they're going to destroy devotees. Now, why it had to be like this? There's all beautiful story that goes on. Prabhupada has spoken on lessons, and Vishnu Chakra Thakur gives in the conversations, the inner conversation that happened between the Lord and the devotees like that. We'll see that tomorrow morning. With this, we conclude here for today. Our Blue Ridge folks, you can just be there for a few minutes. And for